mentioned PEMDAS before. And since I've been on the Zooms, you've mentioned it, but we really haven't covered PEMDAS. And I didn't know if there was one of the other lectures that covers it that I could just go back and look at it on my own.
Mhm.
And the other thing is I was very impressed with the acronym word noise and how you broke it down. And I didn't know, again, if that was in more detail in another Zoom call that I could go and review it, because it was very interesting. And, I think it would be helpful to add to my foundation so that I can, grow better. Okay, so I just want to ask that, sir.
No problem. PEMDAS we've done a couple times. If
Okay.
I haven't already posted it, I'll look through and find out which one specifically where we went through it.
Okay.
Because that's where Sister Tina became our PEMDAS scientist.
Okay.
And then I know we did word noise. I'll
Okay.
try to find the specific one.
Okay.
And post that one as well.
All right. Thank you, sir. That would be very helpful.
You're very welcome. As I was going through this, another concept popped in my head. And then, Allah says he teaches man by the pen what man knew not. So I just wrote, a question came to my mind. I don't know if I wrote it down. It came to my mind as Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 1. And that came to mind. And then the question came to my mind, and I wrote the question down, is how can you connect writing our history in advance to the translation of verbal expressions into mathematical equations? So I sat there and chewed on that. How are those two connected? So by God's grace, what we will present today in the PowerPoint is kind of a blending of what we could call an algebraic theology. And probably one of the most difficult parts of algebra is translating a word problem into an equation. And then the inverse would be translating an equation into a word problem. Now, we're not going to get it all done today, but I wanted to lay the base using our Supreme Wisdom lessons, and then we'll touch on the algebra briefly. But more than likely, this is going to be done over a prolonged, probably a couple of weeks. But now here's also what I'm willing to do. Because of my schedule, give me 1 second, family. My apologies, family. Okay. Okay, where was I? So let us get to what is, PEMDAS. Let me type that in. PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. PEMDAS, Sister Sultana. PEMDAS is what we call, or what I call, the restrictive law of mathematics.
Okay.
And the reason why I call it the restrictive law of mathematics is because from arithmetic up to calculus, everything goes according to PEMDAS. PEMDAS is called the order of operations. And every letter represents a concept. So the P stands for parentheses. Okay. The E stands for exponents. And then the M is multiplication, the D is division, A is addition, and S is subtraction. And whenever you go through working an equation, you have to go in that order. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Now, for example, anything that's in parentheses, and maybe I'll do this real quick just to add some clarity to that. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I was just to give you this quick example, if I said 3, darn it, I'll just say 3 plus 7 times 2. This is just a basic equation.
Mhm.
Equals. Okay, and I'll just put X because we don't know. Okay, based on your PEMDAS, you would work inside the parentheses first before you would do outside the parentheses. So I have seen it written before that the inside the parentheses is called the inner part of the equation.
Okay.
And that means everything else would be what? The outer
Outer.
part, correct?
Mhm.
Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now what lesson can we extract from that mathematically? If we are the equation, then the first part of what we need to do to work on ourselves is we have to do what? We have to work on the inner part.
Right.
And then the outer part. See, if we just change the outer part without working the inner part, then we have a headpiece and a bow tie, but we're just the same old Negro wearing the bow tie and the headpiece, correct?
Right.
Because we've changed the outer, but we haven't changed the inner. So even in mathematics, it's kind of teaching us, if you work on the inner, that's what helps to solve the outer. Go ahead, Sister Milani.
Oh, it just brought to mind that, we're taught the Quran says that Allah does not change a person's condition unless they change it themselves. And so that's the inner part. That's the working on us first. And then the
Yes.
other stuff will. Yes, sir. Okay.
And on that note, self-improvement, the basis for community development, right?
Yes.
Examination, self-analysis, self-correction.
Mhm.
If you look at, and I'm gonna show you something in the actual lesson itself. Sister Tina might remember this, but it's just an interesting way of looking at the lessons. Let me go here. Okay, play from start. I came across this quote. I thought it might, since we're dealing with the universe, a quote by the Most High Elijah Muhammad: "Accept your place in the sun as it was originally before the creation of this world. The Black man is the first and the last, the maker and owner of the universe." Now, did everyone see the picture that I emailed?
Yes.
No, I'm not getting any emails.
You're not? Plug in your email again in the chat.
I haven't.
I didn't get an email.
No, I haven't received the email from you for months.
Okay, that's strange because I remember seeing your email. I tell you what, put it in the chat. I'll make sure that I have the correct email for you. It might be going to someone else, who knows, but I'll double check and I'll send you a verification just to make sure it's you.
Inshallah.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Shayla.
Right.
I see your hand, Sister Shayla. You there?
It may be her computer.
It might be a computer. Okay. Well, the concept was writing our history in advance. I found an AI generator where you type in the words and it gives you a picture.
Wow.
I said, what would happen if I type in a Black man writing in the universe? And this is the picture it gave me. So I said to myself, I said, that's actually a good picture because it reminds me of the verse in the Bible where it talks about the Ancient of Days had hair like lamb's wool. And
Mhm.
this brother definitely has hair like lamb's wool, correct?
Yes.
So writing our history in advance. So we're going to take two. Yeah, she must have had a little problem. So we're gonna take two concepts. We're actually taking three. We're going to look at Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 1. We're going to see how it's related to the tech definition of postulate, but then we're going to connect it to mathematics. Because really, if you're writing history in advance, if you're making a postulate, then really you're speaking in a mathematical theology, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So I want to start with a small clip. We're not going to watch the entire clip, but there's some key points in the minister's lecture or when he was speaking in this video. We're only going to watch 4 minutes of it, but there's a couple of key points I wanted to use to lay the foundation of what we're doing.
Technology to learn, that's right. Technology to learn, that's right. Okay, they can hear. They'll be able to hear it good through the region. Okay, then run the tape, please. I found something here. That I know we need, that would enable us to express the supreme wisdom that we already have, but it's like having a saint full of riches, but we lost the combination. So, Brother Elron Hubbard, we can open the wisdom that we have and execute that wisdom in a way that scientifically will be proud of us and we of them, but we are not a people that hide our light under a bushel basket. If we know that we gain something here, we're not the type of people that are ungrateful for what we receive, that allows us to be better than what we are. I believe Muhammad knew that the meeting was going to take place like this. I don't know whether he met Brother Elron Hubbard, but I believe there was some contact. Yes. Scientists are like that. They meet in small little groups and they talk. And when they share with one another, they grasp little truths that they expand on. Yes. There's something here that belongs to us. Oh, yeah. And Elron Hubbard was a man we were destined to meet at the proper time. So when you mention, washing feet, I sat there with tears in my eyes because the greatest gift that I could give you was to give you that which would make you what you know you already are.
Mhm.
You understand? Yeah. And if you don't, think about what I'm saying. The greatest gift that you could receive after the supreme wisdom is the technology that will allow you to manifest. That technology is here. I discovered it, and I wanted you to see what I saw, hear what I heard, feel what I felt, so that you wouldn't be timid or afraid of knowledge that will help us to be ourselves. And so I invite you. And as I watched you relate,
That was just a small piece of the video, but there was a couple of key points, things that the minister said that I would like to expand upon to lay the base of what we're going to do today. Before we start, does anyone have any comments, anything based on what the minister said? If not, we'll go ahead and keep going.
Could I just ask the question?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear very well, but it said after getting the supreme wisdom, the second thing was the technology too, and I missed what he said. Do you know what he
Okay.
said?
To manifest it.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. So one thing he said was he made the statement, a safe full of riches with no combination.
Mhm.
Okay. So a combination, by definition, is a sequence of letters and numbers chosen in setting a lock. Now, we all have had combination locks where they can be a certain arrangement of letters or a certain arrangement of numbers in order to allow the lock to open. It's also, the word also means a result or product of combining. Now, when I saw this definition of combining, I thought of combination from the standpoint of using the supreme wisdom and the supreme tech together. Okay. But now here's the question, the safe full of riches. Is the safe full of riches the supreme wisdom lessons, or is the safe full of riches your own self? Or could both be true?
Right.
Okay. Because we know there's wisdom contained in the supreme wisdom, but I also believe, this is my opinion, that Allah has stored away in each one of us a great deal of higher levels of wisdom that's encoded in our own self. And I believe that as we study our supreme wisdom lessons and we listen to what the minister has given us for guidance, that the wisdom that we receive is actually coming from within. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's why the educational system of this world doesn't manifest it. Because you have the wisdom of this world, the frequency of thought is very low. Does that make sense? Is everyone with me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna use this as an example, and I hope I can explain it properly. When you deal with the concept what's called quantum mechanics, okay, there's a concept, and if you have a chance, you can look this up on YouTube and get some more data on this. But there's a concept called the photoelectric effect. And I'm just going to explain it briefly, but use it as a demo kit to explain our Islam. The photoelectric effect states that when you hit a surface with a certain amount of energy, that surface will release electrons. Okay, and we know atom is proton, neutron, and electron, right? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Not, how can I say this? Normal light won't have an effect. Okay, you can shine the light on the surface of a metal and it won't have an effect. But I believe it is as you increase, the frequency of the light, then the power that's stored in that type of light will unlock the electrons from that metal and release them.
Okay.
Okay, now what does that have to do with you and I? That same concept, because remember, everything in the universe is a demo kit. It's a parable. And Allah uses everything in the universe to communicate higher levels of spiritual wisdom, correct?
Yes.
So when we look at that short little parable or that scientific example, normal light, this educational system will not release the dormant energy that's contained in your mind. Does that make sense?
Yes.
To release the energy that is dormant in your mind, you have to receive a type of light that's higher in frequency and energy. And when you come in contact with that higher octane, so you could say that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that is more powerful, it is only then can that wisdom unlock the magnitude of power that is contained within you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what we can do is, as we study any level of physics, mathematics, or chemistry, if we chew on the concept, we can draw out of it something that we can apply to ourselves. Like the minister says, place God at the center of your education. And when you study something, look at it from the perspective of you're studying something with regards to yourself, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in this example, the light could be education. You can be the sheet of metal. And the only way what is in you can be released, you have to come in contact with a type of knowledge that is high-powered knowledge. Okay. Baby knowledge won't do it. If it could do it, we wouldn't be 400 years into this and still in a level of ignorance. It just shows that the educational system is not designed to bring anything out of you. It's just a magic show. It's smoke, what's it called? Smoke and mirrors. Okay, but it's not really education. It's more indoctrination. It puts doctrine in you. But the minister has told us that education comes from the Latin word educo, which means to bring something out of. Okay. Does that make sense, family?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So combining is talking about uniting into a single number or expression. It means to act together. So what we want to do is we want to use the combination of the supreme wisdom and the supreme technology together. Okay. The synonyms are to join, to combine, connect, link, associate, relate, mean to bring or come together into some manner of union. Okay. And that is also the same as saying ARC, correct? Or agreement. We agree. Can we say that that's ARC or agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're talking about finding the affinity, reality, and communication between two concepts. Let's see who just came in. I see a Sister Barbara.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Oh, walaikum salam. Okay, it's the Sister Barbara. How you doing, Sister Barbara?
Praise be to Allah. I'm well, sir. How about yourself?
Well, fine. How's my big brother doing?
He's out there, you know, we got terrible weather last night, so picking up limbs but thank Allah, we're fine. Thank
Okay.
Allah. Yes,
Praise
sir.
be to
Thanks for
Allah.
asking.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So is it possible that the union of the supreme wisdom and the supreme technology is what we can use to unlock the lessons? The minister used the word a safe full of riches, but we lost the combination, correct?
Mhm.
So could we say either the safe full of riches is the supreme wisdom and / or it could be our own self, yes?
Mhm.
And it is the union of these two that we're going to use to unlock both.
Right.
The minister used the words express and he used the word execute with regards to the supreme wisdom. To express means to manifest or bring into fruition to the artistic or creative impulses or abilities of oneself. Now, if you look at the word express, there's two words there. You have the root word, and then you have what's called the prefix. The prefix EX means out of, and I think it also means away from, but it's more of out from or outside of, right? Correct? Does that make sense? Like if I say the word exoskeleton, we're talking about a skeleton that's on the outside. So insects have an exoskeleton. Insects have their skeleton on the outside. That's why when you step on them, they crunch. That's really their skeleton. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So express, you're pressing something out. You're manifesting or bringing something into fruition. It means to subject to pressure so as to extract something. So when you look at page 1 of our Supreme Wisdom, it says what? Lay pressure on the mind. Are there many errors in the past and present that they may see the light and walk therein? Yes?
Mhm.
Okay. To manifest or produce, and this was just the definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, a character, molecule, or effect by a genetic process. So we're using the word express from the perspective of genetics, but then I was looking at it also, we could possibly use to manifest a character by a mathematical process. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
So to express the supreme wisdom could mean to apply the principles contained in the supreme wisdom to draw out what is in us. How many times have we read the Holy Quran and the verses never change, but we read the same verse and we get different information? Has that ever happened?
Yes.
Okay. So every time we read it, we get a higher level of understanding. Where does that higher level of understanding come from if the verse never changed?
From us, a better
From
understanding.
inside of us.
It has to me, my understanding is it's based on a gradient level of what's going on inside our own thinking. Okay. And you know, you've manifested that during Ramadan. You come across ayats, and it's like it seems like you've never seen that ayat before, but you know you've read the Holy Quran many times, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So to execute means to carry out fully or to put completely into effect. To perform what is required to give validity to. My computer is moving awfully slow today. To perform indicated tasks according to encoded instructions used of a computer program or routine. So there's something in us, I believe. There's something in us that we have to be able to express it and then execute. but in order to express it, we got to find it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So there's encoded instructions. There's something in our DNA. And I've heard the minister, the lecture is hard trials are necessary to establish the truth. And in that, I think it's in part 1. I think based on what I saw on YouTube, there was either 6 or 7 parts to it. But I believe in part 1, he makes a statement along those lines of what's encoded in our DNA. So are there encoded instructions that need to be extracted from us that need to be given expression? Is that a possibility? Y'all with me?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I believe that.
Okay.
I believe that.
Then he makes the statement. He says, there is something here that belongs to us. There is something here that belongs to us. There is a book called The Creation of Human Ability by L. Ron Hubbard. And on pages 416 to page 417, the following statements are made. Under the title where it says Scientology, its general background, under where it says Western Seekers of Wisdom, he says the separation of science and search from religion, artificial division. He says the early Greeks, Lucretius, Spinoza, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, Spencer, and Freud. So he's speaking about when you look at Western civilization, they give credit to the Greek philosophers, correct? As far as wisdom and, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. That was given by Rene Descartes. You have all these different philosophers, Plato and Socrates, and Western civilization gives them all the credit for all this wisdom that is present. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
L. Ron Hubbard, however, he says, we think of these as beginning our intellectualism. He says they quickened it. He says the bulk of their sources were Asiatic. Plain as day. So if they're Asiatic, who are we talking about?
Us.
Okay. Who was the original man? The Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe, correct?
Yes, sir.
So he's bearing witness. And that's the one thing that allows him to stand out. He doesn't try to make it seem as though he's the author of all this information he's giving. He's telling you, I got it from you. In this book, he also goes into some of the other books that he studied to come up with the concepts that he came up with. He studied Buddhism. He studied what's called the Vedas of the ancient, the people of ancient India, which are all original people. The Bhagavad Gita, another book called the Tao Te Ching. So he gives credit. He basically studied our ancient histories. And then he put, in my opinion, he put that ancient wisdom in the fine language that he knew. And his background was in nuclear physics. Does that make sense? Okay. So his background, if you ever read any of his books, have you seen him speak a lot about vectors? Have you ever heard the word vector a lot?
Yes.
Okay. Vector is a mathematical concept. So if he's talking about nuclear physics, then he has a good background in mathematics as well. So the basic learning objectives, okay, the basic learning objectives are, we're going to look at Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, question number 1. We're going to look at some keywords, and we're going to look at this lesson as an equation. And for those of us that are on the Zoom, I think we're getting more and more familiar with the concept of an equation. Okay. We want to gain an understanding of the concept of postulates and postulate processing. And we want to connect or combine these two concepts together of writing our history in advance and the concept of a postulate. And then we're going to convert we might get to this part, convert our postulates to equations to manifest into reality. This part will make sense as we go through. Okay. Any questions up to this point? Okay. So writing our history in advance. So here's a basic understanding of an equation. An equation provides the elements, and it is the understanding of these numbers, letters, and symbols that allow us to solve all the problems. So again, if you think mathematically, you think about an equation. An equation is made up of numbers, letters, and symbols, correct? Do we understand that basic concept?
Correct.
Okay. So the numbers represent the numbers. Letters are used to hold the place of numbers. Symbols can be used to represent numbers, but symbols could also be used to represent other concepts such as operations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to go, I'm going step by step, I guess you could say on a gradient level. That way we're going up the ladder step by step. And if at any point there's a misunderstood or a confusion, stop me and ask whatever question you have. So I want to make sure we do this step by step and we all get to the same place. Okay.
Brother Lukeman.
Yes.
So the words, I know what you said about the letters,
Mhm.
it holds the place, but the words in the lesson, you're going to show how the words in the lesson, what does it say? You know what I'm saying? You have the numbers, the letter holds the place of numbers,
Mhm.
and the symbol.
Mhm.
Okay, but what does the words do? Or do you understand what I'm asking
You
you?
mean the words in the lessons?
Yes, sir.
There are certain words. We're gonna get into just a couple of them today. But when you,
Okay.
from a mathematical standpoint, if you have a word problem, in order to translate that word problem, in order to solve it, you have to translate what you're reading into an equation. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Okay.
So in that word problem, there are key words that will give you the proper operation to do in the equation.
Okay.
Okay. All we're doing is,
Yes.
it's like we're translating between English into mathematics. Okay. It's no different than if I said, Sister Malani, do you speak any languages?
No, sir. Unfortunately, I don't.
Does anyone speak any languages?
I understand some Spanish.
So if I say que hora es,
What time is it?
okay, what time is it? So all we're doing is we're translating from Spanish to English, and then English back to Spanish, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if you look at the translation from English to Spanish and Spanish back to English, the one word in Spanish is equivalent to this word in English. And if we can make those connections, then we can learn how to translate between different languages, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's the same concept in math. Once we understand the word in English, we're going to translate it into the symbolic language of mathematics.
Okay.
Okay. Sister
Yes,
Malani.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, because I missed, what did you, the letters hold the place of numbers. What do the symbols do?
A letter can hold the place of a number, the symbols can represent either a number or an operation.
Okay,
Okay, so for example, if I'm gonna pull up some symbols to give us some
What?
math that we can look at.
You look outside? You look outside?
Let me do this real quick. Give me 1 second, family. Okay. That way I can kind of work both of these computers at the same time. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, there we go. Okay. Go ahead, Sister Shireen.
Oh, I was just gonna tell you, every time you say translate, because I've been teaching math, I know that translate is also a mathematical term, and it means, was used with transformations when you slide a figure, or, you know, when you slide something from the image and the pre-image, and it creates an image.
Mm-hmm.
So that every time you say translate, I'm thinking slide from like a language into another language, or explaining whatever you're doing is moving from, you know, between two things. That's every time you say it, it's like giving me a mental picture.
So from your perspective, if we have a function, because you're talking about the coordinate plane, right? X and Y axis.
Sometimes.
Right. So if something is in quadrant number 1, where your X and Y coordinates are positive, if you translate that over into the other coordinates or the other quadrants, those X and Y figures might be positive and negative, or both negative, correct?
Correct.
So you're translating, using translation from the perspective of quadratic equations and using the coordinate plane. Is that correct?
Or just seeing something move around, or up and down, or over, or something.
Yes, ma'am.
But every time but when you're saying it in the context of putting it from the supreme wisdom, so I'm thinking, oh, okay, it's gonna go from what it is to a understanding that's more simple for me to understand, because the way it is now is more difficult. But once you give us the tools, we'll be able to translate it into something that is more easy for us to understand.
Yes, ma'am. That is the goal. That is the goal. And be patient with yourself. It's not going to all happen today, but this is something we're going to work on for as long as Allah sees fit. We're going to go over this, and I'm going to try to put something together that I can kind of type up and send out to anyone that wants to do some practice on this. And we'll probably be doing this for about another probably a week or so. Because I think once we get past this, the translating from verbal expressions to algebraic equations, it's going to remove a lot of misunderstoods. It's going to remove a lot of ridges that we have with respect to mathematics. Okay. When we look at translating verbal expressions into algebraic expressions, which are also called formulae, this is going to teach us how to speak mathematically. Now, remember, the Most High Elijah Muhammad says, closing the gap, that when we deal with the universe and we deal with the nature of these things, he says this is the language of a scientist, correct?
yes.
So it's safe to assume that scientists speak the language of formulae because the minister has said so, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And now there is an advantage to this. And I hope that after today, it's going to change our mindset, at least by a degree, if nothing else. So the language, when you deal with the language of mathematics, that's a language that's dealing with past, present, and future perfect tense, correct? Does
Yes.
anyone not understand that? Okay. Again, family, if you don't understand, and maybe it's just that everyone understands, and that's fine. But if you don't understand, I prefer to handle the questions so that there's not a misunderstood down the road.
Okay.
Okay. Why is mathematics a language of past, present, and future perfect tense? Because when you solve an equation, in that equation, it doesn't say that there's no might, could be, or should be. It's saying this equals this, right? 2x plus 5 equals, and you're given the number. It doesn't say could equal or might equal. It says equals, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So the equal sign in mathematics is the same as is. And no matter what language you learn, 9 times out of 10, one of the first verbs you're going to learn to conjugate is the verb to be. Okay. To be. I am, you are, he is, she is, they is, we are, they are. Okay. I know that was the first in French, that was the first verb we had to conjugate. In mathematics, the verb to be is the equal sign. Go ahead, Sister Milani.
Oh, when you were talking about language in language, the mathematics is language in the past, present, and future perfect tense. Now, I think I understand, but I'm not sure. I was trying to think of how to put it into words to explain it. But if you would explain it, I would greatly appreciate it. And then I know that I understand it. And if I don't, it'll clear it up.
Okay, but well, that was the next sentence.
Okay.
So if we have an equation, if I say 2x plus 5 equals 30, okay, the way it says 2x plus 5 equals 30 is the same as saying 2x plus 5 is 30. It doesn't say 2x plus 5 could be 30.
Right.
Or 2x plus 5 might be 30. When we deal with equations, we're saying that this expression on the left is equal to this expression on the right. So now if you kind of look at that from a grammatical standpoint, you're operating on what's called the perfect tense. Okay. Does everyone know the difference between the perfect tense and the imperfect tense?
No.
Okay, that's fine. Most people, well, some people don't. When you look at our lessons in rule number 3, it says we have to be able to speak past, present, future tense being perfect, correct? So if there's a perfect tense, then it has to be an imperfect tense. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have to say perfect.
Right.
Perfect is a word that is used to modify tense to make it different from something else. So what is the difference between perfect tense and imperfect tense from the perspective of grammar? In perfect tense, you're speaking about an action or activity that has been completed. In other words, if I say yesterday, I swept the floor, okay? When I say swept the floor, swept is past tense, right?
Yes.
But that sentence implies that the action was completed at that time, right?
Correct.
If I was to speak in the imperfect tense, I would say, yesterday I was sweeping the floor, but.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so as soon as I say I was sweeping the floor, but the phone rang. Okay, so that implies I answered the phone, but it does not tell you whether or not I completed that cycle of action, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
if I say today I washed the dishes, it is kind of past tense, but I'm talking with regards to something I completed today. So it's kind of present tense. It's an action that I completed recently, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
If I said, I was thinking about washing the dishes, that would be the imperfect tense, right?
Right, because there's no action taken. You were thinking about it, but
I thought it, so I started a cycle of action. My
Mhm.
thought was the start of the cycle of action, but I didn't complete the cycle, yes?
right.
Yes.
Okay. Future perfect tense would be tomorrow I'm going to mop the floor. So when I say I'm going to do something, really in the language of our lessons, that is someone who's making the word bond, right? I'm saying I'm going to do something,
Yes.
Yes.
okay? In the language of Scientology, that's called a postulate. See, so in Islam, making a word bond and postulating are really one and the same thing. You're speaking future perfect tense. Of course, I haven't gotten there yet tomorrow, but my determinism, and we always say Allah willing, is to complete that cycle of action in the future. So speaking past, present, and future tense being perfect, we're talking about cycles of action that have been completed in 3 different aspects of time. Now, if I say tomorrow, I'm going to, if I say tomorrow, I'm going to send out a video and I don't do it, then that was the imperfect tense, correct?
Okay. Yes.
Until I complete that cycle of action,
Okay.
okay? So when we do mathematics is dealing with the perfect tense. This equals this. We're solving mathematical problems, and we're not saying, you know, if I drive, if Albany is 120 miles away and I drive 60 miles per hour, I might get there in 2 hours. Now, based on the math, if it's 120 miles away and I'm traveling 60 miles per hour, the math says I should be there in 2 hours, right?
Yes.
Now, of course, things come up, but just mathematically speaking, when we solve an equation, we're not dealing with mights or could be's. Like Brother Abdul Hafiz used to say, may Allah be pleased with him, he said, wannabes don't make honey.
Okay.
Okay. Does that clear up
Yes.
everything? Okay.
I thought it had to do with cycle of action, but I was trying to figure out how it did. So thank you.
Well, really, it is a cycle of action. When you speak past, present, and future tense being perfect, you're talking about cycle of action that you started, changed, and stopped. You completed it. Mhm. The cycle of failure L. Ron Hubbard speaks of is when something else takes place that takes control of the cycle and then you don't complete it. And incomplete cycles of action, he says, is what one of the things that's at the root of the aberrated mind. If we look around the house, how many cycles of action do we have that we haven't completed? How many of us have looked at certain things around the house?
Infinity.
How many of us have looked around the house and we saw certain things and we did this?
Mhm.
Oh,
Yes.
those damn dishes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, the laundry. Somehow it's almost like someone breaks into your house when you're not here and they put dishes in the sink. They just appear out of nowhere, don't they? Oh, the bathroom. Oh, the floor. Okay, we look at different cycles and we get, it's just, ugh. And then what happens is if we have too many cycles of action that have been incomplete, we get so overwhelmed, we just grab a cup of coffee, the remote, and we binge on Netflix. Or is that just me? Does anyone else do that, or is that just me?
Well, not binge on Netflix, but other
But
things.
you
Yes,
binge
sir.
on
Yeah,
other
not
things.
Netflix, but other stuff.
Okay, so that's what happens.
Distractions.
We get so overwhelmed that we just get overloaded and we just say, you know what, the hell with it, I'll do it later. And we just kind of check out for a little bit.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay, cycles of action, that's all it is. So translating verbal expressions to algebraic expressions teaches us how to translate our postulates into workable data. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means if we can write down things that we want to accomplish in life, and if we can take those postulates, those goals that we want to accomplish, write them down and then convert them into the form of an equation, then we can do a step-by-step process in order to manifest anything that we desire to postulate. We remove emotion from the equation. I've heard the minister say once before, that's why they're called numbers, because they're numb. They don't have any feeling. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wow.
So this first step in the cycle of action would be write down all the things in life you want to accomplish. That's your start. The change is convert what you desire into a formula or an equation. And then the goal is to solve the equation. Input all the thoughts, concepts, actions, money, because for something in life, the money has to be a part of some equations in order to fulfill them, correct?
Yes.
Put all the variables into the equation, and that way you have a step-by-step process of how to accomplish anything that you want to accomplish, and you remove the emotion. But here's the kicker. We're so aberrated, and that's by design. We're so aberrated that we can't complete the cycle of action because we might start to doubt, we might lose faith, we allow other things to come up, and then we make excuses as to why we can't accomplish the goal.
Wow.
Okay. But if we could write down our goal, if we wrote down the things we want to accomplish, and maybe that should be a homework assignment. Write down something you want to accomplish within 24 hours. Write down something you want to accomplish within 3 days. Write down something you want to accomplish within the next week. That'll be the stepping stone. And then take whatever that goal is and break it down into its components, its elements. In order to accomplish this, I have to do this. I have to go to this location. I have to do these actions. And if I can do these things, then at the end of the cycle of action, I should have accomplished this goal. And then everything should be focused on accomplishing it step by step. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Sister Milani.
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to bear witness to the truth because it just brought to mind, if I can share.
Of course.
It just brought to mind something that personally happened. And I was doing the fish program here in Boston. And I had suggested that, because the believers brought, fish, and then, so much of what they brought was so much of the proceeds that they brought went to the mosque, and then the rest went to pay for the fish. And I had the bright idea, and I said, well, to help believers, since they're buying the fish and automatically a portion of their order is going to be donated to the mosque, if I could figure out how much of each order of their order would go to the mosque, maybe we could put it on a charity slip, and that would help the believers in other ways. Now, this is what I wanted to do. Now, here's the example. So I knew what I wanted to do, like you were saying. So it's a verbal expression, what I wanted to do. So I went to my brother, who was the mathematician, and I said, I want to do this. How can I figure it out? Because I had to do the math. How can I figure it out? And he asked me, well, what do you want to do? He gave me an equation. I mean, this is just so beautiful. He gave me an equation so that I could figure out each believer's order's contribution to the mosque. And I had to do it for each person. But this just shows the beauty of it because it's true and it works, a real life experience, and I just wanted to share that because this is not all you know, we say postulate, but this, it works. It really works. I just wanted to share that. I mean, I didn't get the Moss to do it, but nonetheless, I figured out every order. I figured out their contribution, the believers' contribution of that part that was going to the Moss. And I asked if it could go on a charity slip. It didn't happen that way, but at least I did it. And he helped me do it with the equation. And I mean, I was just mesmerized. He just sat down and gave me this equation, told me what numbers to plug in. And it was marvelous, absolutely marvelous. So I'm just bearing witness to the truth.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. So that just removes emotion from it, correct? There's no emotion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Facts, nothing but the facts.
It's just the facts. If this and this and this, then this is the result. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Praise.
how it works.
This is wonderful.
Praise be to Allah. Let's see. Okay. So if you see that equation right there,
Yes, sir.
2x plus 7 equals 17. Now this is, we're not going to solve it, but this is just an example. Okay, 2x plus 7 equals 17. My computer is moving awfully slow here. Here we go here. Okay. This basically says 2x plus 7 is 17, correct? So we're taking an equation, we're converting it into a verbal expression. If I was to give you the verbal expression, 2x plus 7 is 17, then you would write it as the formula above. Does that make sense? Okay. So everyone's good up to this point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Deborah.
I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. I know I missed out on most of the meat, but I'll catch the replay.
Yeah, well, I'll put the replay on today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Not a problem. Okay. This statement doesn't say 2x plus 7 could be 17.
Right.
Right? It don't say 2x plus 7 might be 17. Based on the equation, it's telling you what it is. That's perfect tense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So as Sister Milani showed perfectly, if you have the equation, and if you know if I do this, then I can predict the output. I already know what the output is going to be as long as I do the work over here, that this is going to happen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful way to look at this in problem number 13 is this. If there's 10 numbers in the mathematical language and you learn one number per day, how many days would it take you to learn the mathematical language? Somebody.
If there's 13 numbers,
No, if there's 10 numbers in the mathematical language and you learn one number per day, how many days would it take?
10 days.
10
10
days.
days.
Okay. If there's, 26 letters and you learn one per day, how many days?
In 6 days.
Okay. If there's 29 letters in the Arabic alphabet
Yeah.
and you learn one per day, how many days?
29 days.
Okay. So that's basic algebra. That's what you call an if-then statement, or it's called a conditional. If I have X number and I do one per day, that's all mathematics is. It's telling you if you perform this action to get this result, if you accomplish each part of the equation on this side, you have no choice but to come to the correct answer, correct?
Yes.
We just have to have the right equations, but we have to understand how to do the math. But most importantly, we gotta be able to confront the math, because that's the problem. That's where we start. Someone stuck a needle in our brain with regards to mathematics, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. In other words, mathematics is the language of objectivity. So now what is objectivity? It's the freedom from bias. Okay, there's no bias. Expressing or dealing with facts or conditions as perceived without distortion of or personal feelings, prejudices, or interpretations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Then you have what's called subjective. It's relating to or being experienced or knowledge as conditioned by personal mental characteristics or states. Sister Milani will understand this more, perhaps more so, working in the medical field. For us working when I used to work as a paramedic, whenever we had contact with a patient, we had to fill out what's called a PCR. And in your assessment of a patient, you have what's called your objective assessment and your subjective assessment.
Mhm.
Your subjective assessment is what the patient is saying about their own condition. The objective assessment represents the actual facts. Is that a good way of explaining it, Sister Milani?
Yes, sir. We used to do subjective, objective assessment and plan. So that's,
Okay,
yeah.
and there's a plan also, right? You
Mhm.
know, so now I'll give you a good case in point. There was one day I had a call of an individual that was complaining of chest pain, but I had been told beforehand that this is something they would use because as medics, we would carry Valium and we would carry morphine on us
Oh,
because
okay.
the morphine was used for cardiac patients.
Right.
Whenever we had a cardiac emergency, we would introduce the patient to Mona. Well, who's Mona? Morphine, oxygen, nitro, and aspirin. That was Mona. So you had there's little quick ways of remembering all these drugs you had to administer. I had gotten the heads up that this person used this as a way when they didn't have the money to get high. This is the way they try to get free morphine. So when I get to the scene, the person says, my heart is racing. It feels like someone's sitting on my chest. I have pain radiating into my left arm. She'll give me all the textbook description of a heart attack. Okay.
Right.
So she's giving me her subjective assessment. Someone's sitting on my chest. My heart is racing. I got this pain, all these other things. Okay, but now I hook up to the EKG. I know she's in normal sinus rhythm, meaning she has a heart rate of around 60 to 70. And you know, when you see the little heart monitors, you see those little blips and bumps.
Right, right.
Each one of those things, for those that don't know, each one of those represents a different part of the heart that's operating. Heart rate was fine. EKG was fine. Sister Milani, did you ever call them tombstone T waves?
Pardon me?
Tombstone T waves.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that means that something bad is happening, right?
Right.
Everything is fine. Respiration's good. She's oxygen sat around 98, 99%. So the objective assessment tells me there's nothing wrong with her.
Drug-seeking behavior.
Huh?
Drug-seeking behavior.
Yeah. So, but before I can do anything as a medic, I got to clear it through med control. I said, okay, doc. So you're speaking in coded language. This is what I have. This is that. Okay. Do you want me to? So no, it was a. Well, I won't say her name, but it was a sister who was the med control. So she kind of told me, give her normal saline, which is salt water. Nothing is wrong right now.
Right.
You got to clear that through med control though. In other words, the objective assessment gives me my actual facts. Heart rate, respirations, everything was fine. There's no medical emergency here. Her heart is not racing because her heart rate is like 60 or 70. So in other words, I gave her this, I tell her, I'm gonna give you something, but I can only give you a little bit between here and the hospital. This should help. Let me know how you feel afterwards. So I gave her the salt water, and what do you think she did after that?
She felt better.
Oh God, I feel so much better. Thank you. That's great. In other words, subjective assessment has emotions in it. Objective assessment is just mathematics. You're just dealing with the actual facts of this case. That's why we have to take the things in our life and stop speaking about it from an emotional standpoint of what we can't do and translate the concept into an equation that we know we can do. Because if we can take each step and say, okay, I know I can physically drive to that location, I can do that, I can come up with that amount of money, I can put that much work. And if it takes this many hours, and if it takes 10 hours, and if I can do 2 hours per day, then I can accomplish this in how many days? I can accomplish it 2 hours per day, 10 hours. I should be able to accomplish this in 5 days, correct?
Yes.
I'm removing all the excuses and all the emotion out. And I'm thinking, I'm using my mathematical theology in the proper term now. Does everyone follow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you ever seen them do the drills in the org, that's one of the things that they're doing. Okay. Go touch that wall. The first time I saw this, I said, what the hell are these people doing? I'm trying to do my drills. Go touch the wall. Thank you. Go touch the chair. Thank you. In my mind, I'm thinking, this is some crazy, y'all are bugged the hell out. But this is early. This is early in my understanding, but now I understand. The scripture says, before I can make you, how does it say? Before I can make you, what is the actual, the scripture? Before I can give you strength over large things, I have to make you strong over small. Does anyone remember that one?
Yes.
Okay. So when they're getting up, going over and touching the wall, what individual is doing is they're gaining control over their environment in increments. Okay. Get up and wash. Don't look at the big pile of dishes. Just wash one dish. Don't look at all the laundry. Just fold up one shirt. Just do one thing. And L. Ron Hubbard calls that find one stable datum. Take care of that. Okay, now move on to the next thing. Okay. Don't look at everything that's wrong in the house. Just focus on one thing. Take care of that one thing. That cycle of action is done. Now go to the next thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. That's been very helpful. I've been really trying to implement that every day, and it's caused me to get back on track. I'm starting to feel like I'm coming back into a sense of order in what I'm doing. I was feeling all over the place, and like I say, every time you look at something, it's like, when am I going to get to that? I got to get to that, and you're like, but I got to go do this first. And I kept getting distracted, pulled away. So now I'm like, nope, stop. Complete the task.
Yes.
Just complete this little task real quick. It's 2 seconds, just complete it. And then I said, okay. And I did the next thing. Each time I felt that distraction coming and saying, no, go do that first. I'm like, nope, you got to finish this task.
There you go.
It's very helpful. Very helpful.
And something Sister Belinda said a couple of weeks ago, and I'm thinking, how is that I did not think of this? But it's just like all of us are aberrated. She said she doesn't look at accomplishing a task. She looks at doing that task for 30 minutes. And if she can just focus on it for 30 minutes, she might not complete the task, but she can complete the 30 minutes. I said, damn, that's
a good one. I like
that just seems so simple.
Yeah. That's
So what I do now is when I get ready to write something down or start focus on one thing, I set my alarm for 30 minutes. And then because I have a real bad problem with, I'll start writing something down, another idea comes to mind. I write the idea down, then I start going to that. I start dealing with that. Oh, wait a minute. Then I get a phone call. Oh yeah, oh, that's deep, brother. Thank you. I write that down. Next thing you know, I got 5 sheets of paper on my desk and 5 things I've started, didn't finish nothing.
Yes, yes.
So now I say, okay, nope. That idea might come in. I write the idea down. I come back and complete my 30 minutes on this. Because then I can say, I completed that cycle of action.
Right.
That is a win. And if you can complete a cycle and get a win, then you get some case gain, you get attention units. Okay. So I'm thankful that she said that. And then if I do it for 30 minutes and I feel like, you know what, I think I can get another 30 out, then but even if I don't, I accomplish my 30 minutes on that, and I can move on to the other things I gotta do.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
that my yoga teacher does that same concept. He'll give us a position and he'll say, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to hold. After the 30 seconds, I'm going to let you know it's over. And if you can go another 15 seconds, hold the posture and go. If you think you cannot accomplish another 15 seconds, then go into rest pose. I was
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah. And what are you doing? You're gaining control over this is the language of Dianetics. You're gaining control over the mesh body on a gradient scale.
Yes, sir.
That's all it is. Okay. So.
Oh, but I'm sorry, Brother Lupin, can I ask you a real quick question? I
Course.
received my extension course materials.
Uh-huh.
I've been, notified several times to like, you starting this week, right? And I am that whatever has me aberrated about getting started. I look at it and go, okay, tomorrow, 2 hours, you're gonna start. And I guess I'm not feeling it. I don't understand why I can't just get started.
Well, the reactive mind doesn't want you to go down that path.
2
Go down
hours
a
is
rabbit
too
hole.
much. Give
Now,
yourself 10 minutes.
Sister Sultana, I'll say it in the language I think that's more Sufi. That nafs
Yeah.
is like, oh no, oh hell no. That nafs, in Sufi, do they call it the nafs amara?
Nasama, yes.
Okay, that nafs amara. In Arabic, for those that may not understand the Arabic, nafs amara, the word nafs in Arabic means the mind, the heart, the soul, or the spirit, which is the same as the thetan in Dianetics. And then amara means that part of man that puts pressure on him or her to stay at a low level. In other words, the reactive mind. Does that make sense, everyone?
Sir.
So Sister Sultana, all you have to, well, I can't say all you have to do. The focus is, okay, just spend 30 minutes and do as much of lesson 1 as you can and just focus on it for 30 minutes.
Right. Inshallah. I'm gonna, yeah.
Because then just sitting, see, for me, I have a problem with sitting still. I always feel like I have to be doing something.
Yeah,
and that's probably why over the course of the past 10 years, my hairline was a little bit forward and my hair wasn't as gray. But now, because it's hard for me to sit still and meditate. So now I'm trying to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just sit still, put the phone down, no books, nothing, sit still.
Yes, sir.
So see if you can just say 30 minutes, just do it 30 minutes.
Inshallah, shukran.
Sister Shireen.
Yes, I was gonna say it's hard for me to sit still too, because I equate sitting still with doing nothing. And I don't want to be, not doing anything, even though studying is doing something. But to the sister's point, I'm in the same situation with having to tackle some study material. Just tell yourself the minimal amount of time that you're gonna do it for 1 minute. Now, if you sit there and you look at it for 1 minute, that 1 minute is going to turn into 2 minutes and then 3 minutes, So saying you're going to do something for 2 hours, your brain is like, yeah, right. That ain't going to happen. But if you go in, I'm only going to do it for 2 minutes, then you can work your way up and say, okay, every day I'll do 5 minutes. And, wherever you stop, but at least you're doing it, as opposed to not doing anything at all. And then it turns into a whole month that you had this stuff and now you're feeling bad. Oh, I didn't do it. So yeah, same thing.
Alhamdulillah, shukran. Thank you.
And real quick, I'll share this, something I just started to do recently. We all know that Mother Tanetta Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with her, used to read the Holy Quran in 1 week. And there were days when I would try, I have the division, how she divided up the Holy Quran. And for example, I think it was Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. Tuesday is Surah 10 to Surah 16. And I would try to sit in one sitting and do that. And I couldn't stay focused to read from 10 to 16 all at one time. Then I said, wait a minute. There's 5 prayers per day. And if I was just to read a part of that after each time I make salat, so then I took so that section of the Holy Quran was from this page to this page. I subtracted it, divided by 5, and it came out to me. All I gotta do is read 20 pages after Fajr, 20 pages after Salatul Zuhr, 20 pages. So then I did the timing for me to read that particular part. Let's say I get up to make Fajr, okay, I got my prayer, and I'm gonna take my time to read one-fifth of what I have to read for the day. It only takes 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, I can do 20 minutes. And then I'll do 20 minutes after Salatul Zuhr, 20 minutes after Salatul Asr. And then by the end of the day, I got all my salats in and I read 1/7 of the Holy Quran. It's just, it comes back to how many numbers in the mathematical language. If you learn 1 per day, how many days will it take you to learn it? It's taking a large task and breaking it down into increments that are easily accomplished. And by staying focused and disciplined, if you do every step, then the mathematics says you have to accomplish the goal, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Sister Shereen, did you have something else? Okay, keep going. Okay. So the question is, who made the Holy Quran a Bible? How long ago? Will you tell us, why does Islam renew her history every 25,000 years? Answer. The Holy Quran, a Bible, is made by the original people, who is Allah, the supreme being, or black man or Asian. Now, just for a quick second. Oh, Sister Tina's not with us. Okay. But when you look at,
yes, Brother Lukman, I'm here.
where are you at?
Zoom. I'm on 240.
Oh,
That's the-
240. Okay, okay. So now, remember when we spoke about this a little while ago, what do you see inside that the first part of the answer? What's in parentheses?
The first part, do you have something up on the screen?
Yes, I have the Holy Quran Bible is made by the original people, who is Allah, the supreme being, or black man or Asian, and black man is in parentheses.
Okay.
So according to PEMDAS, what has to be solved first?
The parentheses.
Okay. So one of the first things we have to look at is so if we put ourselves in that equation, we have to look at the fact that it says is made by the original people, who is Allah, the supreme being, or black man or Asia. So Allah is who? Allah is all of us, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And that's the first thing that we have to solve. If the black, and this is just the way I looked at that black man in parentheses. The black man in the parentheses has to solve this. He has to solve for the fact that he is a part of that who is Allah. So Sister Sultana, could you put your name or put yourself inside that equation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Brother Larry, could you put yourself inside that equation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So another way of looking at this is, when you look at the word Quran, the word Quran in Arabic means something that's gathered together. So if you and I postulate, a postulate and the Arabic word for Quran are basically one and the same. So if you and I write a to-do list or we're postulating, are we not writing our Quran? Could we not
Yes,
say,
sir.
okay?
Yes, sir. Brother Lukman,
Yes,
I can I share something?
of course.
I had what you call it, cognition, when you were speaking about what L. Ron Hubbard said about how the Greeks, this world goes by Greek philosophy
Mm-hmm.
as far as knowledge goes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they quickened the knowledge that they got from the Asiatics, which is us.
Mm-hmm.
They quickened it. And so what you're saying now, it just makes me want to speak on my cognition. I asked myself the question, how could they have quickened it when they are weak blood and weak boned? And the answer I got, simple answer I got, was that they know themselves. And, but we don't know ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology from L. Ron Hubbard is giving us the ability to know ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
So that, like in the study guide, I don't know exactly where it is. I was trying to find it, but the study guides quicken the vibratory rate.
Mm-hmm.
And this technology helps with that quickening.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to quicken what they got from us, but we're not able to even know what we got, the treasures inside. So so the black man in parentheses, solving that problem. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And now also, are you finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also remember, in our teachings, it says that we round up all of those that we could find.
Mm-hmm.
And that means if we rounded up all of those that we could find, that would imply that there was some that we didn't find, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So there were some of those in that area. Remember, it says Yaqub was an original black man and was the father of the devil. He taught the devils to do this devilishment.
Mm-hmm.
There were some that never learned the tricknology.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Because we sent Musa to teach him telling lies, stealing, and how to master the original man, correct?
Yes, sir.
So one group had the tricknology, they had the devilishment. There were some that never learned that.
Right. But
So
even
that-
today, the ones who learned the tricknology, they're overpowering the ones who didn't, right?
That's why they keep us illiterate. Mm-hmm. Then it says the Quran will expire in the year 9,080 years from the date of this writing. Okay. It says the nation of Islam is all wise and does everything right and exact. The planet Earth, which is the home of Islam, and is approximately 25,000 miles in circumference. So the wise man of the East, black man, makes history of the Quran to equal its home circumference, a year to every mile. That is the lesson, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the way the minister has taught us before, he said that we write history and we don't write about that which has happened. We write history and then walk into it, correct?
Right.
Okay. So when you're writing history and then you walk into it, is that not the same? I must be having a problem with my mouse here. Is that not the same as postulating?
Yes, sir.
It's the same thing. Well, let's prove it. Then I typed in the AI program, Black man with keys to the universe. And this is what came up. The Ancient of Days. I should have wrote down the Bible verse where it talked about the one with hair like lamb's wool, feet like brass burned in the oven.
Mhm.
His feet would look like they were brass burned in the oven, right?
Yes.
Definitely. Holding keys and the universe is behind them. Come on, Miles. So that's my first time using that AI where you just type in a phrase and it converts it to a picture. I thought that was actually pretty interesting. So we write our Holy Quran in advance. So the key word here is history. The key word here is history. And you've seen before where they said history is his story.
Mhm.
His story. So then we're going to clear the term history and then convert the past tense into future perfect tense. And that's how you produce a postulate. So the new definition will be equivalent to the concept of postulate. And then, when we carry this out, that's kind of what's called postulate processing. So the postulate is equivalent to the formula in Arabic. In the Holy Quran, it says kun fayakun, correct? Allah
Yes,
says
sir.
be, and it is, yes?
Yes, sir.
So
Sir.
Allah postulates. He decides what is to be done. Then he arranges the forces in the universe to manifest his desire. Do we have the same ability?
Yes.
There's an ayah in the Holy Quran where it says Allah is the best of creators, plural. If he's the best of creators, and this is just my humble opinion, that would mean that he's not the only creator. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But he's the best of the creators. So do we have the ability to manifest things from triple darkness?
Yes.
Okay. So where would this triple darkness be?
Our minds?
That's a good way of looking at it. I would think so. Because when you look at triple darkness in Arabic, the word darkness is Zula. Zula comes from the Arabic root word zalama, which also means oppression. So from our oppression, we could say, if we use it in the aspect of the text, that from our oppression comes our creativity. Could we say that? Yeah, with me? How many of us have experienced times when we're in a financial situation, and at those times we showed some of the best creativity?
Yes.
Have you ever run out of something in the house? You had determined you're going to cook something, and then you had everything you needed except a couple of ingredients, and then you had to be creative, and what you made came out better than it would have if you had all the stuff that you normally use?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what is history? By definition, a chronological record of significant events, such as those affecting a nation or institution, often including an explanation of their causes. That's history, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My computer's moving awfully slow. It's a branch of knowledge that records and explains past events. A written record or important events and their causes, a branch of knowledge that records and explains past events. Okay, that's history, past tense. So now let's change our language. Let's change our language now. So instead of saying a chronological record of significant events, such as those affecting a nation or institution, often including an explanation of their causes, we could say that it's a chronological record of significant events such as those that will affect a nation or institution, often including an explanation of their causes. So if we were to postulate and use this on an individual basis, could we say that our postulate is a chronological record of significant events that will affect our causes? Can we say that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's a postulate. We're writing about things that will be. Now, isn't that future perfect tense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Come on, computer. If I say a branch of knowledge that records and explains past events, that if I'm postulating, my postulate is a branch of knowledge that records and explains future events. I'm speaking about things that will be.
Yes, sir.
So then we as individuals would be saying kun fayakun, correct? Kun fayakun is a postulate.
Yes, sir.
Instead of me saying a written record of important events and their causes, I or we could say my postulate is a written record of important events that will occur. And not only will they occur, but I can identify their causes, because who's the cause? Allah does not change a condition until what?
We change it ourselves.
Mhm. So we can come up with the explanation, and then we can come up with the goal, transfer it into an equation, but ultimately, who has to do the work?
We do.
Mhm.
I have to do the.
Exactly.
Mhm.
A branch of knowledge that records and explains past events becomes what? My postulate is a branch of knowledge that records and explains future events. So all we do is we take the word for history and we change the tense from past to future. And that is a postulate. That is writing our history in advance. Can you see how a postulate in Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 1, there's harmony there? Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Now we're going to look at postulates from the perspective of the tech and then come back to Islam. This is coming from the Dianetic Technical Dictionary. It's a self-created truth. A self-created truth would be simply the consideration generated by self. Okay, now. So now if I'm writing my history in advance, if I'm writing my Quran, okay, if I'm writing my Quran, according to the circumference of my planet, meaning circumferre means what to carry around. It also means to bear. So writing my history could mean writing my history based on what I can accomplish with what I have. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I'm writing my Quran based on the circumference of my planet, or the circumference of my universe. You know, some people say, well, all you got to do is, if you can come up with $10,000, well, right now, that's not a part of my universe.
Mhm.
That's not part of my universe, not yet. Okay. So when I say kun fayakun, if I say be and it is, am I producing a self-created truth? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. A postulate also is that thing which is directed desire or order or inhibition or enforcement on the part of the individual in the form of an idea. This is a key one right here, because a postulate, okay, a postulate is a directed desire, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, now look at the last part, or inhibition or enforcement on the part of the individual in the form of an idea, which means if I make a postulate And that postulate is a directed desire. If that postulate gets inhibited, who has to take responsibility to remove the inhibitions in order to manifest the idea?
We do, I do.
Okay. When we hit a ridge, we have to enforce our desire to get us past the ridge, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'll use this as an example. Whenever we have to calculate in fire service of putting fire putting water onto the fire, we have to direct the water from the fire engine through the hose. The hose has what's called friction loss, meaning no matter what pressure you use to put the water through, because this material that makes up the hose, because it's material, it's going to produce a counter effort with regards to the water. Does that make sense? The water can't flow through because of the counter effort. It's like blood going through the arteries is going to be reduced because you have plaque buildup in the arteries. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. No matter what you do, there's always an equal and opposite reaction, in other words. Okay. So in fire service, we take in consideration the friction loss and we make that a part of our calculation. So we can still receive the desired amount of water because we've already taken in consideration the friction loss. In agriculture, I believe it is, and again, I'm assuming this. I'm not an agricultural scientist at all, but my thought is, in order to calculate a yield of crop, you have to take in consideration a certain amount of yield that's going to be lost. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I wish Sister Barbara and Brother Frank, they're the agricultural scientists in the group. A postulate is that self-determined thought which starts, stops, or changes past, present, or future efforts. Well, that's the same as writing history, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because writing history in advance, didn't the original scientists take in consideration the start, change, and stop of the cycles of action for in this present cycle for 15,000 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Makes sense.
A postulate is also a prediction. So if you say prediction, when someone is dictating means they're doing what?
They're writing,
Or
speaking.
So prediction, we could say pre means before. We're saying something before it happens. We're making a prediction, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Same as a postulate. The same as writing our history in advance. You know, some of us have a difficulty doing a to-do list for the next 24 hours. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Brother Burvey, the national secretary, I believe he had mentioned, this was years ago, those that work with him, if I remember correctly, he says he makes them write a to-do list for 2 weeks. I think I heard him say that. Basically, you're writing your history 2 weeks in advance. Richard Man does it for 25,000 years in advance. Some of us find it hard to write down what we're going to do in the next 12 hours. You know, because really to write down what you're going to do over the next 24 hours and then accomplish that takes what's called self-determinism. And that, going back, I think to what Sister Tina, were you just mentioned about the quickening?
Yes, sir. And I have a correction because the quickening is actually in the study guide. It's Roman numeral 15 and 16 in volume 1 through 18 study guide in the minister's letter. And he says that the quickening of the self-accusing spirit, not the vibratory rate. He says the quickening of the self-accusing spirit.
But I think what you're saying, the vibratory rate, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Sister Dr. Ava mentioned the quickening because she.
Yeah, and yes, sir. And the being, the force and power of being. I remember reading it there.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, in one of the introductory letters to the study guide, she had mentioned how the minister had accomplished a certain amount in a certain amount of time, and then narrowed the time down, and I think she mentioned a quickening.
Yes, yes, that's where I got it from in my memory. But then I mentioned it in the study guide, and I just found it. It's,
okay.
Wording is actually the quickening of the self-accusing spirit that the minister says.
Okay.
Yes,
Praise be to Allah. Okay. A postulate is defined as causative thinkingness. Okay. Causative thinkingness. It's about producing an idea that brings things into existence. An idea that becomes cause. If that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Can we all produce ideas that is the cause of some motion?
Yes.
Okay. To conclude, decide, or resolve a problem, or set a pattern for the future, or to nullify a pattern of the past. That's the same as writing history in advance. Because when we're using self-determined thought, when we're determining to be cause, when we're postulating, we are making a conclusion or a decision to resolve a problem, yes?
Yes.
And that problem or set a pattern is for the future, but it's also to change the effect or outcome of things from the past, yes?
Yes, sir.
So can we agree that the concept of writing history in advance and the term postulate are one and the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, this part should take no more than maybe 5 to 10 minutes. We're going to touch on it briefly. This is where we're going to translate just a couple of things just to get the ball rolling. But again, we're going to do this more over the course of the next couple of weeks. Algebraic expressions. So I came across this ayat. It says the Beneficent taught the Quran. He created man and taught him expression. Okay, so we're going to learn some algebraic expression. So the basic concepts. So in algebra is the representation of properties, relationships, or rules of mathematics in the form of symbols. These symbols are numeric. They can be letters, which are called variables, or other abstract figures. So we know numerically there's 10 numbers in the mathematical language, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now when you look at variables, in algebra, the variables are usually given as small case letters, A, B, C, X, Y, Z, correct?
Yes.
But understand that if you're doing an equation, technically you can use any letter that you want to represent an unknown variable. You're not limited. When you deal with symbols, symbols are elements that represent something else. So the symbols are used as a way of using shorthand in mathematics. So you know, the first one, that's plus sign, right? Then you got the minus sign. Then you got that X there, that's the multiplication sign, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The next one is your division sign. So those are your 4 basic operations. The one after that, that figure 8 that's laid down, that's called infinity. The one next to that is that's less than or equal to. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Then one immediately to the right of that is greater than or equal to. That C with the circle, that stands for what?
Celsius,
That's Celsius. So the next one would be
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit. Okay. That next one is a Greek letter
Pi.
that represents pi. That's in pi is, what's the number for pi?
314.1.
Well, you got the right numbers, but the point, it's
3.14.
3.14. And a good way to
3.14.
remember that 3.14 is if you take out the point and you put a division sign between the 1 and the 4, what number is that? Take out the point, put a division sign between the 1 and the 4. What number do you get?
3 divided by 14? No,
No, 3.14, not 3.141, 3.14. Put a division sign between the 1 and the 4. What number do you get?
31 times 4, 31.
Not 31, not 31.
If
If
it's
we start with 3.14,
Uh-huh.
take out to point. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is some of you might be doing it on paper, but I also want us to get us to do this mentally.
3 and 1/4.
3 and 1/4 is what?
or the amount of time that the Savior was here.
Yeah.
That's between the three. Oh, you put it between the, okay.
Yeah, the slant, but the division sign between the 1 and the 4, you get 3 1/4.
3 1/4, yes,
3
okay.
1/4, okay. But the goal is to begin to see this mentally. L. Ron Hubbard, he dealt with a concept called mock-ups. And in mock-ups, you're doing things in the mind. So sometimes doing operations, instead of doing operations on paper, try to see the numbers in your mind and do it mentally. And the more you do this mentally, the more you actually get control over your thinking. Okay. In chess, one of the skills that you have to develop in chess, I'm not a master of it, but one of the skills you have to develop in chess is you have to be able to look at a chess position and move the pieces around in your mind to see the outcome. Because you can't touch the pieces while you're playing, because whatever piece you touch, you got to move it. So in chess, one of the skills is you have to see the position in your mind and move the pieces around mentally. And really, you're writing the history in advance. Let's see, if I push this and take that pawn, he's going to take the knight. And if I put my queen over here, I can get check, and then I can snap that. You're doing it in your mind first. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're gaining control over our thinking. Because one of the things that keeps us aberrated is when a thought comes into our mind we can't control, then 9 o'clock at night, we're making a run down to Sonic to get a milkshake. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for some of us, it might not be Sonic, but it might be Krispy Kreme, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, whatever it is. These suggestions come into our mind, and next thing you know, we're in the car, or we're doing certain things like, man, I wasn't even thinking about that. Where'd that come from? We got to get back control of our thinking.
Right.
And that other symbol next to that, that's your percentage sign, correct?
Yes, sir.
So there's 8 basic elements when we start to do the translations. So you have the 4 operations, obviously. You have your add, subtract, multiply, and divide, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and those are the only 4 operations you have to worry about. Now, when you're translating, there's a couple other concepts you got to look out for, but there's going to be key words. You got to understand when to put parentheses in, exponents and roots. So when you look at in the problem book, I believe it's question number either 7 or 8, it says extract the cube root of a cracked atom. You remember seeing that?
Yes, sir.
So the question is, what is a cube root? And that's something we'll deal with another time. So a cube root and a square root are related. And then you have equals. So I'm gonna give us 3 real quick basic translations. And then, oh, and then you have inequalities. Something is greater than or less than something. Instead of being equal, it's greater than or less than. So when you look at the word addition, if you look at the word addition, if you clear this word and look at the synonyms, you're going to come up with the word add, sum, increased by, total, more than, greater than, or plus. So when you're reading a word problem and you see these words, I think Sister Denise, was this kind of like where you were headed with the earlier question? Is Sister Denise still with us? She's not with us. Okay. Well, when you see these words are telling you this is the operation we're going to use, addition. Does that make sense? When we come up with the word subtraction, if it's in the form of a verbal expression, you're going to see minus, reduced by, subtract from, less, less than, difference, or diminished by. Those are the clues right there. So when you see that, you know, okay, something is being subtracted from something else. If you see the words product, percent of, twice, doubled, or times, you know you're dealing with multiplication. And if you see the word quotient, divided by, per, or quantity, you're dealing with division. Okay. So each one of these words will translate into a symbol which represents an operation. If you see is, was, equals, will be, or results in, that shows you that there's an equal sign in there somewhere. Okay, the basic pattern for basic expression. Okay, so if you have a basic verbal expression, it can contain an unknown variable, a number, and an operation. So there's 3 things you're looking for. Does that make sense up to this point?
Yes.
Okay, let me give an example. So the unknown variable, you assign that a letter. Whatever is unknown, you just use a letter as a placeholder until you can figure out what that unknown thing is. Okay. So really, we could say the demon circuit, we use that to hold the place of, to represent something that we don't know what it is yet. Does that make sense?
Yes,
We know that it's a circuit, but we don't know who the circuit belongs to. We don't know who said it. Yes?
right. Mhm.
Okay. The operation is going to be assigned an operation sign. So there's going to be a word in there that's going to tell you what it is that you have to do. So there's something in there that's going to be unknown. There's going to be some work that you have to do. And then there's going to be a number. And all you do is take the word and translate it into its numerical equivalent. Does that make sense? We good so far, family?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I say a number plus 5, that's a verbal expression. That's not an equation. That's a verbal expression. A number plus 5. So how do I take a verbal expression and translate it into a algebraic expression?
Add an equal sign.
No, because then that becomes an equation.
X plus 5.
That's gonna be.
Oh,
X
wait,
plus
I'm
five.
sorry. I thought you said, I didn't quite hear what you said. Change
Okay.
it to a what?
An expression. So an expression is 1/2 of an equation. But if we don't have, if I said a number plus 5 is 20, when I said is, that tells you there's an equal sign there. Okay, but right now I'm just saying a number plus 5. So we're just starting small. A number plus 5.
X
A
plus
number,
five.
it could, you could say X plus 5, or you could say A plus 5, or you
Yeah.
could say C plus 5. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Okay. So you have to identify. So if I say a number, the letter A represents what's called the indefinite article, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
That means I'm not being specific. If I say go to the table and pick up a book, you can just pick up any book you want, right?
Right.
But if there's 5 books on the table, I say, hand me the book. If I say that's the definite article, your response is going to be what?
What book?
Which one?
Which one?
Which one? But if I say pick up a book, that means any book will do, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if I say a number plus 5, you can use any number, any letter to represent that number. So I know that, so that is your unknown. That is your variable. You assign it a letter. Now, normally, there's a minor rule, but I wouldn't stress it at this time. But usually coefficients. Coefficients are assigned letters at the beginning of the alphabet, and unknown variables are assigned letters at the end, the X, Y's, and the Z's. But don't stress that at this point. Just understand that an unknown variable, you can use any letter you want to represent that quantity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So what I normally do, depending on what I'm studying, if I use an equation like pressure equals force over surface area, then I'll say P equals F over S. I use the first letter of the word that I'm working with.
Right.
Okay, that's just an easy way to do things. At least it works for me. So a number plus 5, that becomes, you take your plus sign. You got your number. A number, N plus sign 5 is 5. You could say N plus 5, X plus 5, A plus 5, it doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're just translating a verbal expression to a numerical expression. Here's one for you. If I say the sum of 7 and a number, if I say the word sum, what is the operation?
Add.
Okay. 7 is 7, and then a number would be what?
You could say N plus 7 equals X or something.
Well, we're not saying equals yet. We're just talking about the expression.
Okay,
So say that one more time.
I said, a sum of 7, so it would be 7 plus something. I'm not sure. Okay.
Okay, so if I say 7 plus something, just
So it's N.
take the something and assign it a letter.
Right.
So it'll be what? 7 plus,
N.
okay, that works. 7 plus N,
Okay.
okay. Come on, PowerPoint. Sum is your plus sign. 7 is just 7. A number becomes whatever letter you want it to be. Now, could I say n plus 7?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Technically, you could, because there's a rule in addition that says even if you change the order, you're going to get the same answer.
Right.
Okay.
It's not with subtraction.
No, not with subtraction. Nope. It's only for addition and multiplication. Okay. 10 added to a number. What does that become?
10 plus n.
10 plus n. Plus n. So keep in mind, on the basic level, you have a variable, you have an operation, and then you have a number. VON or NOV or ONV or whatever way you want to arrange the letters. But this, if you want to put them on a triangle and put, you know, how you have the ARC triangle and put a letter at each point, you know, you have a variable, an operator, and a number. That's the basic expression. I think I might have, okay, that's it, because, ooh, God, I can't believe time flies.
When you're having fun.
Hey. So that's the basics. Now here's what I'm willing to do. Being that I'm still on vacation, I have a lot of time on my hands. Does anyone want to meet before next Wednesday to go over, to keep doing some practice over some more, you know, some more verbal expressions into equations? I'd be willing to do another Zoom meeting to get more in depth, to start running some more expressions. But I'll leave that up to you, up to the believers. If you're interested, I'm more than happy to do another Zoom meeting before next week to give us some practice and go into this. Who would be interested, and when would you like to do it? Don't everyone speak at once.
I would be interested, but I know that I have something coming up. I'm just trying to figure out how fast I can get done what I need to get done to prepare for a hearing that I have. I'm taking the guy who did my roof. I made a complaint with the state. So I'm just trying to figure out how much time I have to get everything together for the presentation of the hearing. So that's what I was thinking about, sir. And it's next Tuesday, so.
Okay, so I'll do this. I will make myself available for at least an hour every morning from, let's say, from 10 to 11. And whoever is able to make it, just send me an email.
Okay.
And if you can make it, just send me an email saying you can make it. And I'll, even if it's just for an hour, just go over a couple of the verbal expressions for about an hour. If not, we will continue to do this next Wednesday, because I firmly believe, and some of you might have already had some breakthroughs, just understanding this little portion of translating the words is gonna take a burden off your mind with regards to mathematics. Now, has anyone already experienced that? Do we have any case gain whatsoever?
So, yeah. I think
Yes,
so.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm driving. That's why I haven't been able to respond.
No, it's okay. No, take care of what you gotta take care of. We don't want to hear no crashes in the background. Just so you focus on that,
Please.
you know.
And I'm also gonna be returning back to work. So I don't know how often I would be able to, but before, you said you're gonna make yourself available for an hour every day.
From
now
between now, let's say between now and Wednesday, I'll send out an invite. I'll make myself available for about an hour. I mean, putting together a PowerPoint only takes me, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. We're just gonna do a couple of translations. We're not gonna get into a whole nother presentation. Just a couple of expressions we're gonna translate. I'll send out the text. I'll make myself available from maybe 10 to 11. Whoever can show up, that's fine. If no one shows up by 10 after, then I'll shut it down and we'll do the next, send me an email if you can make it. If not, don't worry about it. But my focus is getting us to the level of getting through this so we can start actually going in and looking at the problem book and looking at how some of those problems are worded so we can start taking that information. So how do I translate that into an equation? And then the more you do it, I believe you'll begin to look at things in your own personal life and say, wait a minute, here's a situation I got to deal with. Like Sister Milani said, if I can take this problem, and the only reason why it's a problem, and just by using the word problem, produces a ridge, because the word problem has a negative connotation. But if I say, okay, let me take this, let me see if I can convert this into an equation. What are all the components or parts of this problem? So here's all the things that are present. Now, what do I have to do to solve this? Okay. And then if we can do it in that way and do a step-by-step process, that means if I can accomplish this, I can check that off. If I accomplish this, I can check that off. So if I got 5 things to do, and at the end of those 5 things, then I have a completed cycle of action. That means all I have to do is just focus on one thing at a time. Let me take care of this. Okay. The second step, how long would that take? 5 minutes? Well, let me knock that out real quick. Third step might take a little bit longer. But the bottom line is, if I look at all the steps and I look at the amount of time it will take to accomplish each step, then I can say, I can accomplish this goal, let's say in 3 hours. And if I can accomplish this goal in 3 hours, then the focus is knock out step 1 first, get it out the way. Second step. Now, what happens is something might pop up that you didn't calculate. Make it a part of the equation. Just add an extra step. The whole world doesn't come to an end. Just add an extra step, reevaluate the equation with the additional time factor. So instead of accomplishing it today, I can possibly get this done by tomorrow. Check it off after you get done. When you complete the goal, you get a win, you get a gold star, you get a sticky, whatever it is. The fact is, you started a cycle of action and you stopped it, and you completed it. So what does the lesson say? After his history lasts for 25,000 years, what does he do? He writes his history for another 25,000 years. In other words, when he completes a cycle of action for 25,000 years, he writes another cycle of history.
Right.
So whenever we accomplish a goal, it doesn't mean we end. What happens? We have other goals we have to accomplish now. So I pray a lot that makes sense. The postulate process, or the postulates, using our lessons in a way that we can make them applicable in present perfect tense in order to postulate future perfect tense. We're not just reciting the lessons, but we are using them. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And
go ahead.
Oh, I said, and that's the purpose of them.
Yes, yes. If we just recite without using, then it's like being a jackass carrying a book. We're just reciting it.
Yeah.
But it says you have to learn to do what? Use.
Right.
Our mathematical theology in what? In the proper term. Okay. We got to use the lessons, not just quote them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think the more we get case gained and the more we begin to unlock the aspects of our own brain and our own thinking, we'll begin to see even deeper and deeper into the lessons. And then when we come back to these meetings, we can all share what we're finding, and what happens. Then we all elevate together.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, family, if there's no closing comments, no questions, no thoughts or anything, we will go ahead and close out. The one thing I will ask, and I have to get the habit of doing this after every meeting, if you have a success story, please send an email, write your success story. Because then I can get, I'm getting feedback of what works, what might not be working. But if you have a success story of how these Zoom meetings are giving you case gain and giving you some get back your attention unit, by all means, put it in writing and send it. That way I can have that. I'm looking, with the help of Allah, I'm looking to expand this into some other things. And I will use your feedback to kind of make this grow into something bigger. Sister Shireen.
Assalamu alaikum. I
Alaikum
would just
salam.
like to thank you all for this. I didn't work this summer. It's the first summer that I haven't worked, and I can't remember. And but I knew something was wrong at the end of the school year when I finished, and I did not know how I was gonna get back to a place of I don't know, wellness, I say. And but I found this Zoom in Brother Ben's power call, and between these two platforms with believers and the knowledge and the wisdom and the believers, I have been restored in a way that wasn't before. Like other times you get in a place and you get stuck and you go and you talk to somebody and then you get okay, but I feel very much supported now, and I'm so grateful for the teaching and for the believers, and you all have really helped me, and you don't even know what you've done to assist me. So, but thank you, and because I'll be going back to work on Monday, so I won't be able to participate with this in this way. But thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Well, praise due to Allah. Hearing that you're going back to work, that's a win for all of us. That's definitely a win. So
yes, because I'm definitely going to use what I have learned to help our children. I'm going to try my best. I don't have a grasp on all of the Dianetic technology and verbiage, but what I have learned thus far, and I'm gonna deepen my study. But I appreciate you all so very much. Thank you.
praise be to Allah. Thank you, Sister Shireen.
And sister, even though you can't participate live, go on and check the videos. And I mean, you get just about as much. You may not get everything, because when you're live, there's stuff going on and you may have questions that you aren't able to ask. But definitely go and do the videos, because I'm relatively new and I'm trying to catch up, going back, looking at the videos so that I can, come up to present time, so to speak, in everything that has been taught. So definitely go and check the website and review that, because you'll get a lot out of that as well. And I'm sure if you have questions that you can't answer, send them to Brother Luke, man. I'm sure he'll respond.
Yeah, send me the email. Look, like I said, I got 2 more weeks out of work. I keep myself busy. I've got my head in the books. That's all I'm doing is studying and reading, and I enjoy this. This is my purpose in life right now. So if you have any questions, if anyone has any questions, just send me an email and I'll be more than happy to address it. All right, family.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and close out in prayer. Attention prayer. We seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master of the day of judgment in which we now live, the alone that we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray if they've heard thy teaching. Ameen.
Have a blessed day, family.
Assalamu alaikum,
Bye.
family.
Salam.
Waalaikum salam, sir.